the Mike episode.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So are we ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome back to the CCW Safe Podcast. I am Mike Darter in Oklahoma City, and we got a panel here today, right, Stan?
We do. I'm Stan Campbell. You know, his partner in crime. He's the Batman to my Robin. and we are here. It's been a long time since we've been on, you know, because of pandemic and a lot of growth and everything that we got going on.
Yep.
But, you know, we're about to start something new, and we want to introduce a couple of guests. You know, one that you actually do know, which is Rob Hyde that works with us, you know, our use of force expert. And the man up there, the myth, the legend, Phil Nyman of Firing Line Radio Show.
The myth, mostly.
Mostly myth, but Phil is great. You know, I've been on his show many times. I've guest hosted, you know, sometimes, you know, or co-hosted with him. Great show out of San Bernardino is where you guys are out of. But great show, really strong on 2A topics and concealed carry. And, you know, we are here today, you know, this is called the Pass the Mike episode. And there's a reason for that. You know, Mike and I, with the growth of CCW Safe and really from mostly you guys, you know, sending in suggestions on what you want to see in our podcast, we actually take that under consideration and we listen to you. And a lot of our members wanted us to, especially, you know, through the pandemic and the beginning of 2021, you guys reached out to us talking about, you really want us to kind of deal with some of these hot topics that, you know, we don't avoid them, but, you know, we don't spend a lot of time with them because, you know, as you know, when we do, you know, any of our content is based on making you your own risk manager. You know, we want you guys to learn from the mistakes of others, the challenges of others, you know, so that you don't make the same mistakes and get yourself, you know, in trouble. The reason why we do, you know, the podcasts and the articles from Sean Vincent and Don West. You know, we always, you know, stay home where we know we have experience with police matters and emergencies and, you know, use of force. And you know, we always hit home de-escalation and avoidance. You know, that is really the foundation of everything, you know, making you pulling the trigger your last resort. So these are a lot of the things that we push. And, you know, for that reason, you know, we made a decision, administrative decision to, you know, launch the new CCW podcast with two new hosts. So Mike and I will be stepping away. Unfortunately, we love you guys. We know you're used to hearing about all of the things that we do. And, you know, we love sharing stuff about Mama Mona and, you know, all the stuff she goes through. And then Mike and, you know, his worldly travels and everything. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff today because he has been through some things. But we really decided to, you know, step away from what we were doing with you guys and move more into, you know, something that helps you also, you know, get through your day-to-day questions about what's happening in the Second Amendment and, you know, and use of force. And that's one of the reasons why we chose to, I mean, Phil is really one of the best in the industry. We chose to partner with Phil from Firing Line Radio Show. We're going to kind of introduce him and let him talk about himself a little bit. But, you know, we partnered with him, but we decided to make it so that he and Rob co-host so that we have an expert to kind of break down, you know, some things that Phil would not know. So, you know, Phil is in the know when it comes down to the news and he has, you know, strong opinions and, you know, he's really aligned with a lot of our membership group. And then Rob, you know, he keeps it home and we'll be able to answer any of Phil's questions. And then we'll break down kind of how the format's going to go later. But real quick, before we jump into Phil and his true introduction, I want to pass it over to Mike because I like to hear about what Mike's been doing for the past several months.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things is consistency with this podcast. We want to be able to have this consistent for you guys, and like Stan said, we've worked with Phil long enough. We've worked with him for several years now, and I think you guys are really going to like Phil, what he's going to be able to bring, because he's going to be able to bring something that we didn't have before, talking about news and current events and and things in a way that's going to keep it, it's going to keep it relevant to you guys as CCW Safe members. And like Stan said, with having Rob there, Rob is full-time with us now. He's a certified certified expert in use of force. So the consistency and having these two is going to be awesome for the show. So, and we look forward to getting this to roll. We've been working on this for a while. So
yes, sir.
Yeah, it's been good. But yeah, we've had a lot going on with CCW Safe. Man, it's just been, this last year has been crazy for everyone. And, I'm sure we may get into that, some of that today, but man, it's a whole different world than it was last time we did this show, probably.
Absolutely. And then, he's trying to get away from what he normally does for us, which talks about, Mike is a man of the world, and he just got back from a great, it's a great trip. So tell us about the trip, because this is important.
Man, it was awesome. I went to Guadalupe Island in Mexico and photographed great whites, and I've got one up behind me on the TV. But yeah, it was an amazing trip. I was in a cage for 3 days. I think the last day, man, I was underwater probably 8 hours, which is probably not too good for you. But it was awesome. At one time we had 6 great whites in the water. These things were 16 feet, average 15, 16 feet long, about 2,000 pounds each. And man, I should be able to play that video. So I got a video. You saw the video, right? Hitting our cage. So,
yeah.
So if you don't know, you should know already. I'm blind in my left eye, right? So I only got one eye. So my right eye. So I had a shark going right across the cage, and I was photographing it. And they had these about 18-inch windows you can lean out. You can put the camera out and shoot. So I was leaning out, shooting it right, and all of a sudden our cage just started shaking. I got hit by a car. And I turn around and look up, and there is a shark's mouth in the cage. His nose is in the cage. And what happens, he was going after the tuna, and when they decide to go, they go. And they roll their eyes back. They close their eyes or they roll them back. I can't remember which one, but they go, so they can't see what they're. So you hit that tuna and they breach. So they were actually breaching the surface, jumping up out of the water, coming back down. And when he came back down, he came right into our cage. And
oh my God.
The video, you could tell, I was like, what the heck was that? But it was fun. It was a cool trip. You're going with me next year, Stan.
Good times.
Yeah,
good times.
Good times. I'm gonna try to go with him next year. Like Stan, I self-proclaimed tough guy, but I'll run from a pit bull. So I'm gonna try to go with Mike next year. Just push through my fear. And then really get in, but not 8 hours, but I'm good for about 30 minutes.
I bet you'd be surprised once you get under there how fun it is. And you get close to these things, and they're not like aggressive. The month before that, I was with brown bears up in Alaska that were probably 800-pound plus brown bears. And as long as it's kind of like when we talk about things with concealed carry, as long as what is around you and what the behaviors are and and you have to know the history too of like, you can't go up into Colorado or Utah, or not Utah, Wyoming or Montana, and be around grizzly bears like you can be in Alaska. It's a totally different deal. You have to know the history, you have to know, and that's kind of, same thing we talk about with concealed carry, about knowing location, about knowing
your environment. Knowing
your environment. So once you know that, once you understand that, and you understand what you can and can't do with these animals, it becomes fun at that point. So you're gonna have a good time.
I was in Alaska last month
on
a hunt, and somebody had taken an animal way up on the hill. We could see some stuff, and there was 2 young grizzly bears, and the way they move, they're bounding up the hill, bounding up this 45, 60 degree hill, just like they're running up it, right? And they were parallel to this carcass. And when they got even with it, with the wind, they turned and sprinted towards it. So, I mean, there's 2 grizzly bears. We're watching them. I had my binoculars on them, sprinting right at this dull sheepskin that was up there. And they just go and attack it. Well, 3 days later, when I'm hiking down off the mountain and have all this meat on my back, I just have this vision in my head that they're just going to be downwind somewhere, and all of a sudden I have 2 or 3 grizzlies just charging at me.
Yeah. You know, Phil, I was in Montana last year. I think it was last season, around the rut last year. There was a guide that was guiding a hunter up it was around Jacksonville. It wasn't in Jacksonville, but it was close. And they got and the guide actually got killed, but they took an elk, and by the time they got there, I think they actually went up the next morning. But 2 bears came full bore running at them, and the guide turned around and just had enough time to get his hands up and, you know, start kind of yelling at the bear, and got hit full speed. And it was there was a big investigation on it, and I was able to see the reports on it. And one of the interesting things from that report was they're coming out, they were talking about how guns don't do anything against bears, but bear spray does, that bear spray works. And this guy, what happened was, how they determined that was he had a Glock, I think, in a shoulder holster. He took it off and hung it down when they started to cut the meat, hung it on a tree right there, and had his bear spray there. Well, by the time he turned and those bears were already on him, he didn't have enough time to get to it. He got attacked, got mauled. And what actually stopped the attack, and they found this out later because they did find the bear. And I think they took the bear. I can't remember if they killed the bear or not. I think they did, but they had evidence that he had bear spray all over him. And that's what stopped the attack. And they knew that the attack had stopped because the guide who got killed, the hunter took off, got on a horse and took off. But the guide had made it from the spot of the attack about, I think, 50 yards or so before he finally collapsed, and there was no sign of struggle. So once he engaged the bear spray, then the bear took off. But they were talking about how, you know, guns really don't do anything against bears, but bear
pistols,
spray.
No. So
yeah, right.
We were in so the last night on this trip in Alaska, we were sitting in camp. We couldn't get flown out that day because of the wind. I mean, when you go to Alaska, you're just at the mercy of everything. And so we're there one extra night, and we had to pack all this meat down off the hill through this canyon. And at the bottom of that canyon is just grizzly prints everywhere, you know? And again, I'm thinking he's coming in. And of course I was the last one. My guides are way ahead of me, and I'm trugging with 130 pounds of dinner on my back. And so anyway, we're at camp, and I pointed back to that canyon, and I said to the guides, I said, you know, that grizzly's going to come down here this evening, and I'm just going to shoot him from camp. And they're like, yeah, sure. 30 minutes later, there's the bear, right? And so we got over there, and you want to talk about the difference in toughness in an animal. And I've shot a lot of animals. I've hunted for 40 years. That's why you shoot a lot of animals. But this is the first grizzly bear I'd taken. He took 4 lethal shots. Each one of those was a mortal. Nope, we had to, you know, it took 4. Normally, you know, 1 shot on an animal and you're done. It took 4. He was hit 5 times, or he was hit 6 times, but 4 of them were lethal shots that should have killed him immediately. Nope. No, it was. This was a high-powered rifle, not a pistol. High-powered rifle with over 3,000 foot-pounds of energy. You know, I mean, it. Like I said, elk go down immediately, deer go down immediately, grizzly, it just makes them really, really mad. They're not nice. I mean, that's what I came away with is, oh my goodness, it's how tough a grizzly bear was. I would never want to think of trying to take one with a Glock 21.
No. I heard a story from Luke Franey, who he was an ATF agent that we all probably had worked with in the past, but he lives in Colorado now. And he was telling me about a story about a guy, he was out. I don't remember what he was hunting. He had a shotgun and he got attacked by a bear, and he turned around. He had enough time to just kind of go to the ground with his shotgun. And he went to the ground. When he went to the ground, he got one round off, and it like took the whole bear's like right side of his neck, kind of went right as his neck and got his carotid. So the bear actually bled out almost on top of the guy. But
2 minutes later,
when he landed on the shotgun, when that bear landed on the shotgun, it bent the barrel. The barrel was bent when the Rangers got there. Yeah, those things are huge. And there's, that's one thing where I go up into Katmai, they've never been hunted. Now, right across at Kodiak, they've been hunted. So bears in Katmai, you have to know the history of the area and even the individual bears. Because even in Katmai, King Salmon. In King Salmon, Alaska, they will pepper bears that get too close to houses. So they'll pepper them with shotguns. And, those bears even act differently, of course, than any that are out in the wild, like in Katmai or Lake Clark. Because Katmai and Lake Clark, they've never been hunted. So you can literally walk almost right up to the bears. I mean, you don't walk right up to the bears, but I can walk right up to the bears.
Stan and I will be right back here filming it.
Listen, this is not even a black conversation. I was going to stay quiet. But just to bring this back to what because all these stories, regardless of what we're talking about, can be brought back to your world. And I'm talking to the audience.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about dealing with a person that has either some type of intoxicant on board, drugs, or they're intentional with something, with just being psychologically challenged. When you have to use deadly force or you're forced to defend yourself, understand that your one shot may not be enough. We're talking about the bears, but the motivation of a human is still the same. A lot of people think because of TV and movies that we're kind of conditioned to believe that 1 or 2 shots may be enough, and many times it's not. You have to shoot until the threat has stopped. Because these people can still be motivated. There's a really, I say great, it's unfortunate, but there's a couple of new viral videos out there showing some police officers having to deal with a man with a knife, and this could be you. But they're trying to shoot them. A lot of people talk about, hey, shoot them in the arm, shoot them in the leg. That's not the thing. But even fatal shots, just like Phil was talking a little while ago, it doesn't have to be a bear. We're talking about humans will actually continue on and bring the fight to you. So you guys have to consider that. And also, a side note, being that they were talking about animals, remember as well that we do cover vicious dog attacks as well. On humans. So if you are being attacked by some vicious dog, we actually cover that as well if you have to use your firearm to defend yourself. But anyway, let's bring it back to you guys. Yeah. Next, as we move on, because Phil, you see he's a hunter. We at least know Phil's a hunter right now. But we're gonna get into.
Or I was wandering in Alaska with a rifle for no particular reason. Yes.
I mean, he's at least a meat hauler. So we'll call him that.
A packer.
But he's a packer. So Phil, Naaman, who are you? Give us a history on you. And then and following that, tell us about the Firing Line radio show, why you did it, what it's about, and because it's still going to be active. You guys check them out. But who is Phil Naaman? Talk to us.
Well, I grew up in Southern California. Well, I've gotten old in Southern California. I've never really grown up, as Stan knows. But I think my teenage years, my mom, God bless her, was absolutely anti-gun, still is. So when I was 15 years old, about half mile from my house, a gun store opened up. So for teenage rebellion, I went and got a job at the gun store. And it was a great place. As a matter of fact, the owner of that store and I are still very good friends. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the Second Amendment. I learned about firearms. I learned about respect for firearms. This was back in the day when all the cases had Colt Pythons in them and, Model 29s. It was just beautiful pistols and nice Winchester Model 70s on the wall. It was a great time, and I learned a lot. So my high school years, I worked in a gun store. And my mom was still anti-gun. So on my 18th birthday, I bought my first firearm because it was my hunting rifle. And because that was the very earliest I could do it. So that's my background. Was I got into hunting by meeting this guy and just had a great time and started shooting. My life took off in different ways. And about 9 years ago, I was approached by the radio station. I was doing some other work with them. I was approached by the radio station and they asked me if I wanted to do another show. And I said, I'd like to do one on the Second Amendment and firearms because we don't have that out here. You have motor talk, you have tech talk, but we don't have anything about guns in Southern California on the airwaves. So we started that, and CCW Safe came on and was one of the early sponsors on that show, which has kept it on the air. So we do a lot of advocacy for the Second Amendment. We have the California Rifle and Pistol Association on, we have legislators on, we have gun manufacturers on, we have gear guys, we have the fun part about the show for me is I get to design, I talk to who I want to talk to about what I want to talk about. And I try and keep it mixed up between pistol shooting and CCW and, the legal responsibilities you have. And hey, here's something new over here and here's a competition, and you're just mixing it all up. So it's not the same thing every single week. I am told I talk too much about ballistic coefficients, but I do try and keep that down a bit. So we've been doing that for 9 years now, Stan. And
it's awesome.
Once a week, the radio show, you can get the podcasts at firinglineradio.com. I've begun filming all of our episodes now. So at gab.com/firinglineradio, we have all of those up. Like this will be up there also. And, we have a big presence on Facebook, but we're trying to move everybody to Gab because the writing's on the wall. Facebook is very anti-Second Amendment. And one day we're going to wake up and not have access to it. It's happened to me twice. They've locked us out of our account. It's obvious, right? We need to move the people from Facebook to another platform. So for my radio show, I've chosen gab.com.
Nice.
And there's a great picture of Stan on that website right now, gab.com/firinglineradio. There's Stan right there. Am I lying?
Yeah, no, you're not lying. And he decided to put the shot where the light is like beaming off my bald head. So I don't know if he really likes me, yo.
I thought that was an inner glow.
No, that was not. That was an outer glow. But I do appreciate all that you do for me. What you guys are gonna find about Phil. He has a sense of humor. So he's gonna say some things at times. Don't tell on him. Don't send me no emails. But he's gonna say some things, but he's just playing. Please understand.
That's the reason we got Rob there to.
Yeah. Rob,
yeah, you don't want my use of force recommendations.
No. Do not listen to Phil's recommendation on use of force. Only Rob. But Phil's will be funny. Phil's are going to be funny. But yeah, so it's going to bring a different dynamic. We're really
excited. Two angels on the shoulder, right?
Yeah, you already know it's not it. But you guys are going to be really happy with Phil and kind of how he and Rob play off each other. But once again, hey Rob, because there's a lot of new members to CCW Safe over this past year. Can you kind of give a brief description of what you've done in your life and experience?
I can. I have been involved in combat sports my whole life, from a little boy even to current times. I started with wrestling. I was a high school wrestling coach before I was a police officer. I was in an area that was blessed to have just amazing athletes. So we had great results. When I became a police officer, I was in the academy in 1995 when we had a horrible domestic terrorist incident in Oklahoma City with the Murrah bombing. My academy class was actually activated, and that was the first call for service that I ever responded to. Mike and Stan were both part of that. Gary Eastridge was our critical incident response team manager, was a homicide detective then. So we all had experience with that incident. But it was, instead of something that scared me, it was something that the community response to that was so overwhelming. I knew I was in the right place in the right spot. I had he's still on, actually. My brother was an officer before me. I did a little over 25 years. During that time, I had the choice assignments that I'd always dreamed of. I started in patrol. I went and worked street crimes, kind of narcotics unit, impact unit. I did that for a short while. I left that and went to be an officer in the gang enforcement unit. During that time, I was getting instructor certifications, anything I could get sent to, any school I could go to. I became a law enforcement driver instructor. I was a firearms instructor. So I've taught firearms to police officers for about 23 years. I still enjoy shooting sports. I still enjoy training people. With my wrestling background, I became involved with martial arts. I became a defensive tactics instructor. It was something that, people did the very best they could with what they had. But our program was really lacking. And shortly after I got out of the academy, Stan actually took over that program and really started changing things. Mike was involved in that as well. Both of them made amazing improvements to the safety of officers and citizens. We just did things a little cleaner, a little safer. Stan ran that for a number of years. And when he promoted and became a lieutenant, I came in behind him and I filled that spot. So we've both been the subject matter expert for law enforcement use of force. We've had that unique role of having to look at things like that with a critical eye. Stan and I still, if there's something that hits the news that's really hot, you'll see us, we jump on it immediately. If he knows about it before I do, my phone rings and he's like, have you seen this yet? And we start hashing things out. And we're just like everybody else. Your first initial reaction is based on emotion. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this looks horrible. Mm-hmm. And it's not until you get more of the story and you find out some of the things that are going on. There's so many factors that actually get looked at in uses of force, whether it's law enforcement or a civilian defending themselves or something like that. There's so many things that play into that. And it's something that Phil and I will do, like Mike and Stan were mentioning. There's things out there that kind of hit us in the feels and we get really upset about, oh my gosh, this happened. And, and yeah, it's normal. It's natural to have that emotional reaction to it. Mm-hmm. and hopefully what we're going to do is be able to bring in a little bit of how this is going to be looked at through the court systems and everything else. So we've avoided a lot of things like this previously because people do become so emotional about them. They'll get upset with us and go, I can't believe you're siding with this. And, you know, you're basing this emotional reaction on very limited information. You don't really know everything that's going on. We've seen things, Stan and I have seen things that's like, oh my goodness, this officer's going to prison. Yeah. And then by the time an investigation is completed and everything is hashed out, it's like, man, this officer really didn't have a choice. So there's all kinds of things to look at like that.
Before you, hey, Rob, before you go too far into that, real quick, we got about 5 minutes left. I want you to give, because Mike talked about consistency, kind of talk about how the show is going to be, you know, because Mike and I ran our show loose, but give us some idea about how you and Phil are going to, you know, have your production.
Okay. We're going to go back to releasing these podcasts on Wednesdays again. So that it's going to fall back in line with where we used to put things out for your so you guys could digest them. But each week we're going to kind of have a little bit different way we want to run with it. We want to have a week every month that is kind of an open forum where we actually can get into some of these hot topics, some of these news items that maybe they are the things that are kind of causing people to react emotionally. On another week, we're going to have featured guests specifically related to our members and what our wishes are. So we want to carry topics that are specifically related to Second Amendment things, concealed carry things, or maybe just some kind of current violent thing that's happened that's in the news. We want to go on another week and utilize the experts that we have in-house. So, you know, we can have Stan back, we can have Mike back. We've got Don West on staff. You know, I mentioned Gary Eastridge earlier. Sean Vincent does a lot of research and writing for us. We'll do some things that with Sean. And then we'd like to do an additional extra week in there where we cover some things from the legal end of it. Again, whether we're going to use legal experts that we have, whether it's Don or other guys that we have access to. But it's going to give you that other perspective coming from the courts. And it's just going to kind of well round out the informations and things that are available to our members and subscribers.
Awesome. Thank you. And so, yeah, guys, we're really looking forward to, you know, what Phil and Rob are going to bring to the table. Again, we're not abandoning you. I mean, there will be times, even when they have experts on, you know, you might see a box where Mike or I jump on just to, you know, help with the interviews or, you know, give our perspective as well. Like I said, this is like some exciting times for us, you know, where we're trying to give you guys what you're asking for. But Mike, you got anything before we get off?
Nope. I'm looking forward to see what comes of this. I think it's going to be some good podcast.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure,
No
Phil.
pressure, Phil. Make it happen.
Okay. Like if you guys don't like Phil, email Mike at CCWSafe.com. But I think it's going to be great. You know, like I'm pumped about it.
Yeah.
You know, we've been looking to do this for a while, and timing is everything. Passing the mic is really important. I mean, because this just his organization built on Michael's, experience in his shooting. And we come full circle with Kyle with Sweet Law, doing officer involved shootings here in the metro area. And wow, they're working on more than 60 officer involved shootings.
That would actually
really
be a good podcast too, is having Kyle on and just talking about what we're doing for law enforcement. They might be able to even talk about some of those cases that have already gone
dissolved.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where we are now. So we're about a minute left. So I'm gonna allow Mike to, exit us out for the last time.
For the last time.
For the last
I feel like we're on some 70s show that's
I know
going off,
Yeah.
Nah, this is gonna be great, Phil. I'm thrilled to have you involved. I've always had a great time with coming out and being on your show, and Phil's, he's really all we've ever done in California, and California is our probably number 1 or 2 state. So
yeah,
I think a lot of it comes out of that little show in San Bernardino, man.
Inland Empire.
Excuse us. But yeah, so and me for the last time for me and Mike's show anyway. I want to say you guys be safe out there, and keep using your head, because